This month's Dr. Ron question really deals with the little black seeds, or what appears to be a black seed, in some of our pasture and hay grasses. To answer that question, I've asked Dr. Keith Johnson to join me. Keith, you've been scouting pastures around the state all season long. What are you seeing?
Well, what I'm seeing is that because of delayed harvest due to rains and advanced plant maturity, this has resulted in seed heads in a majority of our first cutting hays. And what I'm seeing in those seed heads is ergot in cool season grasses like orchard grass, tall fescue, smooth brome grass, ryegrass, and quackgrass. Ergot is a fungal disease that typically occurs when we have a wet, cool spring that's followed by warm temperatures, just like we've had this spring and early summer. Because weather conditions delayed the first cutting of the hay harvest, we have a lot of seed presence in our first cutting hay. And as a result, if ergot is present in these seed heads, this can really be a concern.
So how do I know if I've got ergot in my forages?
Well, we need to use visual inspection. So to evaluate the presence, we need to go to our hay and take it out and look for the evidence of dark brown, purple, or blackish kind of bodies that look like similarly to elongated mouse droppings. Essentially, they will be, as you stated, in a spot that looks like it's where a seed ought to form. These dark-colored bodies, the ergot sclerotia, as we call them, are actually larger than the typical seed usually. It does invade during that wet and cool years during pollination time, and this fungus contains alkaloids that can cause symptoms similar to fescue toxicosis, which isn't a good thing. It should be noted that the alkaloids are only located in the seed head, and with that late hay harvest that has occurred this season, this will increase the potential for higher levels of ergot concentrations in our cool season grasses hay where infestation has occurred. So how does this ergot affect the animal?
Well, the ergot alkaloids are cumulative. So we could have an animal that takes a large dose over a short period of time and create the symptoms, or you could have kind of that prolonged lower level of exposure. And the ergot alkaloids kind of have two distinct syndromes. The first one is where we get vasodilation, vasoconstriction, of blood vessels. And the first symptoms of that vasoconstriction would then really occur in the form of lameness. All right, and it can happen 2 to 4 weeks after the exposure. We tend to see a drop in milk production. That's going to obviously affect calf performance. And in advanced stages, we can get complete blockage of some of these blood vessels, and we get a gangrene effect. All right, so you mentioned the fescue toxicosis.
Right.
So we talk about fescue foot and sloughing of hooves and ears and maybe even tails. And so the second part of that system is really about that's affecting the central nervous system. And so we can get animals that are hyperexcitable, we can get convulsions, and ultimately we can get death. So I should point out that the ergot alkaloids are additive to the fescue alkaloids. Okay, so if we got dirty fescue, we can have a cumulative effect, and that becomes more of a challenge, as well as really hot weather and really cold weather. And of course, in that circulation effect.
Okay. So what can we do to treat ergot toxicity?
Well, currently there's no treatments, no antidotes for the alkaloids present in ergot. So if symptoms occur, producers really only have the recourse of taking that feed away and replacing it with a feed that does not have those alkaloids.
Okay.
Most of the alkaloid-infected hays are probably going to be very mature this year.
Yes, they will.
So they got seed heads, and so it means that probably got low protein, low energy values. Supplementation then to meet the requirements will help us, because it will cause a little bit of a dilution effect.
Yes.
But it's really important to note that supplementation does not eliminate the alkaloids. All right, they're still there. All we're doing is we're diluting it and maybe delaying some of the symptoms.
Okay, so what can one do then in terms of having hay analyzed? Can that be done for the presence of the alkaloids?
It can be, all right, but it's a different analysis than what we typically think of whenever we take a hay probe sample for nutrient analysis. We're going to really need the entire plant, all right, seed head, leaves, stem, so we can really get at a concentration. And there is really no analysis that I can run on the animal, all right, so it's all got to be done on the forages. And so you need to probably take about a 1 pound sample and send it off to a commercial lab, which is probably different labs than what we typically send our nutrients analysis off to. And so Iowa State Veterinary Diagnostic Lab and University of Missouri's Diagnostic Lab both do these ergot analysis, ergot alkaloid analysis and fescue alkaloid. My recommendation would be that if you have fescue, and particularly a dirty fescue, make sure that you, if you're going to have these analyzed, you do the ergot alkaloids plus the fescue alkaloids, and that's going to cost you about $100, in the neighborhood of $100 at those two labs.
So for more information on the ergot topic, we need to go to show notes, which are below this video for more detail, and the sample submission forms are there as well.